All right, it is 6:30, so we're going to call this to order. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dennis, do you want to lead us?
I sure will. Everybody please stand. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have roll call?
Chair Chester.
Here.
Vice Chair Miller.
here.
Commissioner Hicks. Commissioner McHouston.
Here.
Commissioner Mild.
Here.
Commissioner Mullins.
Here.
And Commissioner O'Brien.
Here.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we have one. Dr. Hanson Wong.
Okay.
Well, welcome, commissioners, to your new year. Thank you for what you do. I just have some events that are happening that from the Healthy Yucaipa Committee that I just thought I'd pass along to you in case you don't go to the city council meeting. So on April the 26th, we're joining with Crafton Hills for our run this year. Instead of the bunny hop, it's going to be Run for the Hills, and it's on April 26th, Saturday. So if you want to run or bring your children or grandchildren or pets or whatever, you're welcome to come. The other thing that this year the Healthy Yucaipa Committee wants to do is present different lectures to the community to help them understand certain things. So for the month of April, we're going to be talking about opioids and overdose. And in May, we're going to talk about water and sun safety before the summer comes, obviously. And then in June, we're going to talk about nutrition. In August, about suicide prevention. And in October, we're going to talk about exercise. The things will be on the quarterly information thing. For the exact dates, I think they're on a Thursday night, and they're at the community center. So you're all welcome to it. Invite your friends, relatives, whoever's interested. If you have additional topics that you would like to have us present as in the lecture series, please let us know, because we want to do what you think the community needs. And it's, I was just at the youth advisory, and they have more energy than any of us, but they're younger too. So, but anyway, so they're going to give us advice on what topics that the youth think that might be beneficial to them. So thank you for your time, and come if you can.
Any more public comment?
No more. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We'll move on to approving the Planning Commission minutes for February 5th, 2025.
So moved as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion passed. Let's move on to the public hearing. We are going to open the public hearing. Does anybody have any disclosure of ex parte communications? Anybody? I did have an ex parte communication. I had Brett Grenlin called me and wanted to chat with me about the item, so I just wanted to report that. Okay, staff presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Planning Commissioners. I do want to first apologize if I have to cough. I'm getting over that horrible flu went through our planning department. Today we have before you case number PLN PHE 25-0003, a major variance for an additional wall-mounted sign, which will bring the total wall-mounted signage to 325 square feet in lieu of the permitted 200 square feet to provide visibility for travelers along the I-10 freeway and to be in line with the La Quinta corporate design requirements. The site is located within the existing Yucaipa Gateway project with primary visibility along the I-10 freeway and Oakland Road, with the underlying land use district being service commercial, with floodway to the north and to the kind of southeast, the freeway corridor specific plan, including the pumpkin patch. Sorry, trying to lean away from the mic. The hotel features 4 frontages and includes an existing Arco convenience store and fuel station, an existing 3-story hotel, and a pad designed for future fast food restaurant and coffee shop. The proposal is for an additional wall-mounted sign, bringing the total signage to 325 square feet. Some prior history on this project. At the Planning Commission meeting of February 20th, 2019, the Planning Commission reviewed a revised Del Sol elevation of the Yucaipa Gateway project and approved, although the specific sign was not reviewed as a part of it, the elevations did include both this sign as well as the western-facing wall-mounted sign. Additionally, at the regular Planning Commission meeting of August 2nd, 2023, the Planning Commission reviewed a major variance for unpermitted signage that required a major variance for review. The Planning Commission discussed whether the variance would be setting precedent for future signage. They discussed that the development code likely needed to be updated to provide modified sign standards for larger buildings. And a lot of the conversation centered around whether or not there was tangible benefit to a secondary sign and the additional square footage, given most people use their phone or Google Maps to find things, whereas a wayfinding sign may not be as necessary. A commissioner made a motion for approval. That motion failed, and thus the result was a procedural denial with no formal findings made either in support or against the project. But the project was also not denied with prejudice, so it could come back for re-review, including, potentially to City Council. Rather than appeal the Planning Commission's decision, the applicant opted to remove one of the wall-mounted signs and permitted the existing sign with a minor variance. They identified since then that they are experiencing about half as much walk-in traffic as they would anticipate, with about 8 to 10 per day instead of the typical 20 that they see in the hotels that they own nationwide. Additionally, without the branding on the freeway-facing side of the building, many customers have noted that the building itself looks more like an office space or a doctor's office than a hotel, particularly around peak pumpkin patch season when there are people from out of town in. It should also be noted that this project is subject to a development agreement that includes increased transit occupancy tax contributions to the city. So the higher occupancy, the better it is for the city as well. The proposed sign is an additional 105 square foot sign facing the I-10 freeway, and it does comply with the corporate design standards for La Quinta. It is internally lit channel lettering and and there is an existing sign on the south elevation facing Oakland Road. The variance request has been made with draft findings attached in the staff report and is centered around that the building has 4 frontages with 3 facing major rights-of-way, including the I-10 freeway, Oakland Road, and 14th Street. The lack of visibility along the freeway, given some of the vegetation and topography of the surrounding area, both eastbound and westbound. The signage being in scale with the larger building, but the size requirements being really capped out for a much smaller building, and then the use as a wayfinding or advertising device of an additional sign. We'll talk about the location a little bit. It does, as I previously said, have exposure to 3 major rights-of-way, including Oakland Road, 14th Street, and the I-10 freeway, with the proposed wall-mounted sign located over 500 feet from eastbound traffic on the I-10. Additionally, the sign will be on the 3rd floor, reducing the apparent size of that sign, and in scale with other 1- and 2-story structures. And by virtue of being a hotel, many customers are unfamiliar with the area, so you probably don't have locals staying in a hotel in Yucaipa. Here are a couple of photos from the eastbound and westbound. From eastbound traffic, you have kind of a hill that blocks the kind of visibility. And then on the westbound, there's some heavy vegetation that blocks it until about maybe a couple hundred feet before the off-ramp. In addition, there are some existing signs along the I-10 freeway, maximizing the view that they have along the freeway, including the Golden State Glazing as well as Markarian Law Office. These are single-story buildings that are about 25 feet tall with only one street frontage plus the freeway visibility. The CS land use district allows a 3-to-1 ratio of linear building frontage to sign square footage. So for every 1 square foot of one linear feet of frontage that they can have 3 feet of signage, with a total 200 square foot signage permitted within that land use district. The specific site, the La Quinta, is a 3-story building. It's 41 feet tall as compared to some of the 25-foot tall single-story structures, with tower elements that go even higher than that. Again, this has 4 frontages as compared to many of the other structures that were noted that had 2. And the building is over 275 feet long. So it has the same 200 square foot limit of a building, roughly a quarter of the size or frontage. And so, the larger sign does help maintain some of the proportionality and scale of a smaller building, and the larger buildings really weren't considered with our development code. Here are a couple of site photos. I used Google Street View for that one because I had to take from the freeway. And then there's the La Quinta at night. Notices of the project were sent to all adjacent property owners and no responses were received. Going the wrong way. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that you approve case number PHC 25003, subject to the conditions of approval, adopt the major variance findings as contained in the agenda report, find that the project is exempt from CEQA with a class 11 and 5 exemption, and direct staff to file a notice of exemption. The applicant's team is here if you guys have any questions for them or for staff. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, would the applicant like to come up and make a presentation?
Thank you, Chris. Hello. Good evening. My name is Alex Musino. Boys, can I lower this a little bit? Sorry. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Alex Musino. I'm the applicant. I represent ACAALP. As you know, we started building this hotel during COVID. Very hard time, and we finished the construction of the hotel. It opened up right at the end of COVID in 2023. It's been a very competitive environment. We were lagging behind our competitors, both to the east and to the west, and we've noticed that the visibility for us was very negligible, in the sense that hotels, our type of business requires marketing and visibility. We have that nice frontage fronting the highway. However, as you come down, if you go down the highway in either direction, you don't know it's a hotel. You might confuse it for an office building or a small medical building, but we're a hotel. The way we compete here is by having a nice, beautiful facility. We offer great customer service. If you have a chance to walk into our hotel, you see it's nice and clean. We don't skimp on any costs, even though our occupancy isn't where we want it to be. We still maintain good employee numbers in order to keep our customer service up to par. But importantly, as Christian said, visibility is very important for us. Without having signage on the highway, fronting the highway, our occupancy will not increase. It'll stay at a lower level as compared to other La Quintas in the area. We invested quite a bit of money a couple of years ago to install a freeway sign. However, our first location for that freeway sign was next to the flood control, but because of the soil stability, we couldn't install it there. That would have been an optimal location for our freeway sign. Additionally, at one time, we had discussed the possibility of having the height of the sign be 80 feet instead of 52, which was originally approved. Right now, that sign, the location of that sign, you can't see it from either direction. You can't see it. As you're coming from the west, coming down, the trees, there's about 4 or 5 trees on that abut the Caltrans property and adjacent owners. You can't see that sign as you're coming eastbound until you're at the sign, which means you're right across from the off-ramp on the west side of the highway. If you're coming westbound from the south, we have the bluff and the little hill there. You can't see that sign even if you're in the 3 or 4 lane until you're right at the off-ramp, but you're already past that. So we would much appreciate it if you would consider favorably our application for this variance, because it's necessary for us in order to stay competitive. I think it's beneficial not only for everybody involved, but for the city and for us to have that visibility and have more people visit our hotel and stay there. We have a lot of traffic going up and down the highway that, as I said, they don't know we're there. They think we're an office building or a hotel. They don't stop. Obviously, there's communications, iPhone. You get on your phone and check for a hotel. It'll tell you where there's a hotel if you're checking, 15, 30 minutes ahead of time. But we need your help with that sign to get that approved. Here tonight with me to answer any questions you may have is Alan Ames from Wyndham, and also Alan Bowes from Pacific Inns, which is our management company. Thank you.
Do any commissioners have questions for the applicant?
Is that okay? Comment? Yeah, you've got that bluff, and you've got the trees, and you got a water basin, and a nice hotel 500 feet from the freeway. The variance is increasing the signage. It's a 3-story building. The staff's done a great job on the report and the history and the pictures and the findings. The conclusion was the sign's consistent with the CS Land Use District, General Plan, Development Codes, et cetera. I'm all for it.
Anybody else have any
Yeah,
questions?
I have a question. What is your cost of that particular sign on that side of the building for the sign and to erect it onto the building?
Alan Bowes, would you? Excuse me. This is Alan Ames with
Hi.
Wyndham.
Hey, thank you for having us. The actual sign, as it mentioned on the report, was already produced, and it was originally installed per our prototype, right? I understand that the ownership did not get the permit, the signage permit ahead of time, but that sign is still in a warehouse locally. The brackets are already up on the building waiting for that to be installed once the approval. But I would say that size of sign, typical a sign package, usually we've got signs on all 4 sides of these hotels. Usually you're probably $150,000 to $200,000 on signage and installation for
your
the
total,
whole thing.
For the total signage.
For the whole
so
thing.
The sign on this side of the building, the additional sign you're looking for, you're estimating how much?
I would say you're probably 25,000.
25,000?
Yep.
Okay.
And I might make one more comment if I can. I did a little bit of research just to see how this hotel compared to other La Quintas along these same freeways here in Southern California. And our booking window, and you might know this about hotels, you might not, but so much of it is same-day bookings or within 1 to 2 days is our booking window. So this site in Yucaipa currently has 58% of their business comes in the same day or within that 1 to 2 days. Compared to the other hotels here in Southern Cal, they are on average about 75% of their business walks in same day or within that day and a half. So that's about a 16% swing in occupancy. And I really do believe the way that hotel's positioned and how it sits down in, you don't see either direction, any type of signage on it. And that's why we're here today. And we would sure, from the brand's perspective, of course, we would love to see it because we know that would help performance locally here at the hotel. And of course, it helps the city and it helps Wyndham as well. So I support it as well if you want to know. But thank you again for having us today. Any other questions on behalf of
Any other
for the
commissioners?
brand?
Questions?
I have a quick question. You said the sign is already, or was already up there. The brackets are up there, the posts. So the sign was there. What does the data show as far as occupancy while the sign was intact on the building versus after it was removed?
It was removed before the hotel opened.
Oh, so you don't have any data to show that?
No.
Because, I mean, you can see that, I drove down there today, and just that view, you cannot see that hotel. By the time you see the hotel, you're already gone past it.
That's correct.
So I'm wondering, what data is there to show that once a sign is there, I mean, people can't see it because of the location, the geographical location of the hotel?
Well, the building, as you're coming from the west eastbound, you can see the building for a good distance. I'd say about a quarter of a mile from that overpass. So you'll be able to see the signage on that side, on the west side of the west face of the building. However, regarding the pylon sign, you can't see it because of the trees that are blocking, as you're coming from west to east, that are blocking that sign. It was a bad investment on our part on that sign. And same thing goes as you're coming from going westbound from the east. You can't see that sign because of the bluff and the little hill. So historically, the only thing that we can say is what Alan is repeating, comparison, the data that we have regarding our occupancy, our clients that come in, walk-in clients, it's like 58% versus 78% or whatever, 80 of other La Quintas walk-in traffic. So we're lower, but they have signage. If you go to Moreno Valley on the 60, there's a La Quinta and it has a sign right fronting the highway. If you go to San Bernardino on the 10, the same thing, a La Quinta has sign fronting the highway right there. And it's helped them. So there's no doubt in my mind that it's going to help us.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Questions? Okay, do we have any public comment? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
We have received two. First public comment speaker is Dr. Hanson Wong.
Hanson Wong, Yucaipa. I also drove along looking at it, and I feel bad for the company. Does that mean I'm done already? I feel bad for the company because the typography makes it very difficult as people are traveling. And even with the signage up, I'm a little concerned that people, by the time they see the sign as you're driving the freeway, you're probably gonna go past it and hopefully it helps them. My concern was brought up a year and a half ago that our codes for larger buildings and so on probably might need to at least be looked at, if not changed. So I'm making a suggestion that sometime in the near future that we look at this and some of the older codes that we have for the city, because some of them have been around a long time and progress and times change. So I think it would be important for our city to update things. So the development codes, I think, should at least be reflected. I don't know whether for larger buildings that you use proportional size changes, and then the clarity needs to be done so that we have as few exemptions as possible. And we don't want to give other businesses, say up the street, that don't have their problems to say, oh, you gave them this exception, and why not give it to us? So thank you.
Can I make a comment? No?
Right?
That's your choice. Charlie.
Next, we have Christine Moeller.
Thank you. You know, I was here a year ago and wasn't planning on speaking a year ago regarding this issue, but I couldn't sit there and not speak, and I'm going to do the same thing tonight. The same issues exist, and I have to give it to you, Madam Chester. Do I call you Madam? Chairperson Chester. You really you brought it down to the basics, and you said you drove several different La Quinta hotels, and new ones too, and they didn't have that giant sign. They had the regular sign. And so what they're coming asking, and they asked us a year and a half ago, is do a major variance and change your city ordinance and codes to accommodate that we put up a bigger sign. You need to also remember that another planning commissioner slapped him on the hands and said, you guys didn't get your permit either, did you? And you didn't adhere to what was on the plans. So now we have somebody coming in after the fact asking us, the city, to change the ordinances for signs. And a major variance isn't a little bit, it's 50%. And there's also a ladder back sign there. Now, did they know these situations with the trees and those things? Yes, they did. They knew that in advance. So they came to us a year and a half ago and said, okay, sorry, I blatantly disregarded the rules and I didn't play by the rules. I made a bigger sign I put a sign up there that's 150% of what it was allowed, and I'm coming back to you for forgiveness. Another planning commissioner busted their chops and said, hey, were you guys fined? They asked Ben, have they been fined for doing something that was against code, and now they're asking for forgiveness? And he said no. So, you know, La Quinta Hotel is our first big hotel here. Do they expect to be 100% of where the other hotels are? They shouldn't. Should they expect the citizens of Yucaipa to change the codes and what we're used to accommodate them? I don't think so, because that gives everybody else the right to do the same thing. So what if Mr. Markarian and the other guys decide that they want to go ahead and do 150%? And they're going to go and put it up, and they're going to come to you. There's a way that things are done. Business is done in a certain way. And when you violate the rules, you have to play by the code. And they're not doing that. So today they're coming up to you and they're saying this and that, and our numbers aren't right. We're not cool with that. I'm not cool with that. I'm not cool with that. I'm not cool with them coming up here and asking us to do major variances for something that's on the freeway. It's a huge building. It doesn't look like an office building. I see that it's the La Quinta Hotel. We all know it's La Quinta Hotel. And another planning commissioner, by the way, asked them to show specific statistics on what the percentage of people making their appointments in advance, and that's never occurred. Just saying.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments?
Not at this time.
Okay. Does the applicant want to come back up for a rebuttal to any of the public comments?
Thank you. The reason for this variance request is to improve the occupancy at the hotel. There's various factors that go into improving the occupancy. One is the quality of the product that you have, which is a brand new hotel. Two is the type of customer service that you provide, which we do not skimp on. We try to provide the best customer service. Third is to keep the hotel clean, as clean as possible, where we will have repeating customers. Fourth is the daily rate. We've kept our daily rate as low as possible, below competition. However, we have the three variables I mentioned: the quality of the hotel, the quality of the customer service, the cleanliness, which help clients come back. We're not asking the city to approve a higher daily rate for us. We're asking for the city's help with approval of this variance in order for us to increase our occupancy, be in line with our competitors. As I indicated, we started building this hotel and we continued with construction throughout COVID. We didn't open this hotel until right after COVID. It's been a very 2 hard years that we're coming up with in June. And a sign on the west face would definitely not only help us from an occupancy standpoint, but it also would help the city. So we have a good partnership with the city, and I think it will continue. We plan to build, as Christian said, a Starbucks and a burger place right next to the hotel, which is necessary. That would also help with the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, the public hearing is closed, and we're going to move to the commissioner discussion. Want to start on the end? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I'm sorry, one more time?
So this is the point where we do a discussion amongst all of us, so I go kind of down the road.
Yeah, I don't have any comments about the project at all. I think it was pretty straightforward in the material that was provided to us for review. I think it's a good idea because that building is just, as you're driving eastbound from west, you really don't know what that building is. My wife even pointed that out to me the other day when we were driving home. Once you hit Oakland Road, yes, you know it's La Quinta, you can see the big sign, but it's not until you're on Oakland Road where you see that. Other than that, I don't have any other comments.
Okay.
Can we ask staff a question?
Yes?
This was brought up back in 2023, August, right? That's over a year ago. We're trying to get a variance, a major variance, that is going against what the current code is. Did staff look at the code to say, maybe we should look at this code? I've heard it multiple times now, that, hey, we should probably look at that because this building is different than any other building. Was that looked at?
So we are going to be working on a comprehensive development code update, and so we will be taking a look at our sign code as well. Sign codes tend to be a pretty heavy and somewhat controversial lift when you kind of get into it, just because there's a lot of competing interests. But we are going to be looking at that to kind of help clarify the public comment. At this point, we're not requesting, or this action does not change the code in any regard. So any project that comes through would that requests a larger sign would still have to provide their own separate findings. But certainly, if we do have larger structures like this in the future, it probably does make sense to have a much more kind of scale-based approach for the code. That way, a 3-story building or something of this size that's unique to this size structure versus something else that's much smaller, that will probably be something we will consider in a future sign code update.
So this sign that wants to go on is it the west side? West side of the building? It's about 62% over what the current code stipulates. That's pretty big. Was there any change saying maybe we should do 2 signs and get it within smaller signs? Was that looked at all?
So they did, because they had already constructed the signs, they did process a minor variance for the existing sign on the building, and so they had kept that one along the south-facing wall, and so we did process that. They did meet the findings for that one. And I think as they've gone along, normally when it comes to the sign code anyways, they're allowed to have 2 different signs on a building. And then in the past, the Planning Commission has granted additional signs on a building if there's multiple frontages. So we do have commercial structures where there'll be 4 signs on the building for if you have 4 frontages. So that's not necessarily unique. So in this case, them having 2 signs is not that far off of what you would normally see. It's just the total square footage is a little bit higher because they have a much bigger building compared to the buildings that we typically have dealt with in the past.
So the code doesn't have like I thought I heard it, if you have so much square feet, your sign can be so big, right?
It is, but it still
this-
caps out at the 200 square feet. And
But
so
it
that's
has a
where,
cap of 200.
so if we didn't have the cap, then this would be well within that limit is just that
And we didn't
200
look-
square foot limit is the.
We didn't look at that, and we're not gonna look at it, or in the
Not
future?
at this proposal, no, but that could be certainly something we consider in the sign code update.
Okay, thank you.
Dennis?
Yeah, perhaps what we should be looking at is maybe taking a look at the sign code for the freeway corridor. And that way it doesn't spill over into some of our other commercial districts, and that we could specify the sign, a district for the freeway corridor. That could be something that could be looked at. Second thing is, and I didn't have the dimensions here, the distance point from the building to the south side of the freeway. What's the distance there? Do you have that approximately?
So the distance to the nearest on-ramp is about
Not the-
500 feet.
Not the nearest on-ramp. It would be the south side of
Far
the freeway.
on-ramp.
Far
I
side.
don't have that
But-
available.
But you said 500, you were getting ready to say 500 feet?
Correct.
To what point?
I would say it's about 500 feet to eastbound traffic. The nearest lane, Katrina with our engineering team is going to do a quick measurement right now to find out to the far end. But I would imagine it's probably closer to about 700 all the way across the freeway.
I did a little homework on readability for signage. And I have a chart here, and it says, because these are 28-inch letters, I believe what the sign is being proposed here. And having readability, and they didn't give specification for 28-inch, they gave specification for 24 and 30. So it says readability distance for maximum impact for 30-inch lettering, okay, is 300 feet. Okay, we're double that probably in there. So, and I think it was brought up earlier, as you put that sign farther up and you get farther away, of course, it's harder to read. Based on the size of the sign they're looking and the distance that they're trying to attract business from, they're pushing it as it is. And so do, well, feet, I'm sorry. No, they're 28-inch sign. That's how tall it is, the sign letters. If you look on your specifications on there, you will see it shows, and I could be wrong there. Is that correct, Ben? 28 inches?
Yeah,
Is the block lettering?
Yeah, so to clarify, you're saying that based on that readability, their sign in theory should be larger to
Actually,
meet the readability.
Based on the standards and the studies they've done out there, and they would feel that they would even need a larger sign out there to really make it readable, okay? And I have copies here. I'll be happy to give you a copy of it so we have that for the future. Being a business owner, and I've been a business owner and had to put signs up in my place of business before, I wouldn't go out and spend money unless I thought there was going to be a return on my investment. And so based on that, whether he's costing them $25,000 or $35,000 or $15,000, he's making an investment to try to enhance his business. He's in an awkward position there because of some vegetation, because of the height of the overpass and some other photography going to the east. I feel I'm gonna support the findings here that staff has come up with, and I want to be a good neighbor to our business people in the community in that, to try to enhance their business. After all, it does create sales tax, but more importantly, it creates a bed tax. We get 100% of the bed tax. We don't get a portion of the bed tax. We get 100% of the bed tax. So the more he can occupy that building, the more that this community is going to benefit from it. So that being said, I may have some additional comments, and I'm in support of this project.
Do you have any comments?
I do need to go back. I did talk to Christine Moeller earlier this week, so for Ex Parte Communications, and she expressed her concerns. So I drove around too. like most of you guys, and I did notice it's very hard to figure out what the building is if you're not familiar. So then I spent some time this week talking to friends, family, people in the community, people in our office, and I asked how many of them knew we had a La Quinta hotel, and if they did, where it was. And I was shocked at about only 30% knew we had one. So this week. So in my line of work, real estate, signage, we do a lot, like they do a lot online and a lot of it, which is some of the concerns that have come up. And then also though, like for my business, signage still works in the front yards, everything else. So when I take that into consideration, him as a business owner, I think he is suffering from lack of signage after talking to people in the community, not even knowing that we have a hotel in the city at the freeway. So looking at it, I definitely think this is pushing it as far as the variance, but I think it's needed because we need that hotel to thrive. We don't need that hotel to collapse. So with everything we're hearing tonight, I'm in support of it also.
Okay, Mike?
So I've lived here since 76. I had a family member come in 77 and they needed to stay somewhere because they couldn't stay with us for various reasons. And the only thing I could point out was the motel on Yucaipa Boulevard. So they ended up in Redlands, you know, at a hotel. So I've always kind of thought we need a motel in Yucaipa. So I was grateful to see La Quinta during COVID persevering in the construction. Mrs. Moeller, if I can say that, usually has some good arguments. I do think there's a choice of maybe the letter of the law versus some forgiveness of whatever's been done that might cause a root of bitterness and cause us to maybe just, you know, not want this project. I'm not saying that's the case, but there's a choice. Mr. Wong, I thought, had some good comments about the developmental code, and I think we've all agreed, and Mr. Miller and others have said that needs to be revisited, particularly with a 3-story. I wish these things had page numbers, but a staff response above the variance finding 4 got it for me. It says, in addition, because it's one of the few 3-story buildings in the city, the scale and the mass require a larger sign that maintains the same scale as other buildings. And I think Mr. Miller was pointing that out. I think we have a great partnership between city and hotel, and if this will enhance the partnership and help with occupancy, you know, there's kind of a little faith venture there, but if they're willing to put up the money and get a little bigger sign put on the side of a building on the 3rd floor, my goodness, that makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Thank you. I just want to say that I was on the Planning Commission when this originally came to us, and you know, with actions there are consequences, and with that, you guys had to have the expense of taking that sign down. So to me, that was a consequence, and coming back and expressing how that affects, you know, your business as a whole, I definitely want to take into consideration that the economic impact is a positive economic impact for the city. So, I mean, we'll just have to see how it rolls. So with that, do I have a motion?
There, I'll make a motion. You need to say the motion.
State what the motion is.
That we have a variance on the size of the sign for La Quinta. Is that good enough?
You can just state that you make a motion to follow staff's recommendation as listed in the agenda report.
I make a motion that we follow the staff recommendation that's in the report.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Can we take a vote? No, she asked for a vote.
Vice Chair Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner McHouston,
Yes?
Commissioner Mild,
Yes.
Commissioner Mullins,
No.
Commissioner O'Brien,
Yes.
and Chair Chester.
Yes. Okay,
Motion
motion
passes.
Okay. Thank you. It looks like we're going into our study session now.
Yep, I'm continuing our theme of kind of training and just preparing you guys a little bit more of the work that you guys are doing, making sure you guys know all the lingo, kind of the background, so you guys are more prepared as we get into more projects. We do have kind of a lull of some activity right now. A lot of projects are kind of stuck in the review phase, and so we'll have probably a light couple months working through, but then probably as we pick up into the end of summer and into fall, we'll have a few more activities coming through. And so really taking this time just to help get you guys prepared, and certainly for the benefit of the public as well. And so really talking about kind of planning itself and why do we plan? Well, really, civilizations have been planning for a long time. Think about the Roman era and how they kind of set up grids. Medieval fortresses in Europe was really trying to leverage the resources that they had, and modern day planning really comes from that. And really what we see as today's modern planning kind of environment is from the Industrial Revolution, where the compatibility of different uses became a great concern. We want to establish the goals and policies for our growth and development, address fundamental issues related to that growth, our housing needs, environmental protections, and then recognizing that our resources are limited. We don't have unlimited everything that we can do, so how do we manage what we do have and make sure that we can accommodate what we need into the future? And so that really is why we plan. And then the hierarchy of planning really comes down, one, from the U.S. Constitution and federal law, and the California Constitution, and then state law. And then what happens at the local level is through the general plan and specific plans and the local codes themselves. And so the city has a few different tools that we use for planning itself, and you guys have the fun role of being involved in all of them. And so we have our codes and regulations, which is the general plans, specific plans, codes, and design guidelines. And then we have the projects, which is the conditional use permits, parcel maps, tract map variances that we just had as an example today, and then as it gets into the building permits. Now, general plans, they're a big, important document, but what really are they? Well, one, they're required by state law, and there's very specific elements that they address as well. But think of it as the blueprint and vision of a community over a long period of time. So it's usually written for a 20 to 30-year horizon. And it really is the basis of the policies and land use decisions that you as the Plan Commission take, as well as what the City Council is supposed to be doing. So this says, we as a city want to be going to this direction, and we're going to make decisions based off these policies that are set forward on it. And then the general plan has 7 required policies or elements: land use, housing, transportation, open space, conservation, safety, and noise. That is misspelled right there. And then it can also be framed together, so some of it is combined, so open space and conservation, for example, and ours is combined into one. And so those are all kind of important. Safety and noise are also combined in ours as well. Now the format is pretty easy. We have goals, identity, policies, and implementation. The goal is really the high-level statement of what we want to see. And then we really focus on the policies. What is the action that we're going to take to do it, or kind of the decision that we're going to focus on to achieve it, and then we're going to have an action that helps lead us to that goal moving forward. Now, a key thing to remember with general plans is that it is a living document. It is not like the Bible. It doesn't stay still forever. It's not Moses coming out with the 10 Commandments, or 15 loses 5, and it's now the 10, as the movie goes. So it does change over time. State law does allow cities to approve up to 4 each year. And as part of those 4, you could have multiple items in that amendment as well. So it's not just you touch one thing and that's it as part of that 4. You could have multiple different areas being grouped together as well. And really, you kind of focus on the updates for new issues and opportunities. A lot of it comes down to certain state law changes that require things to be addressed, or circumstances that change that need to be altered. The community changes, the needs change, things that were a priority back then when the general plan was written may not be a priority moving forward, or something new happens where you go, okay, we really need to make sure we have something that addresses this, and so you want to change your general plan to make sure you're covering that. Now, that said, you can do changes over time, but if you notice that we are making a lot of changes, maybe a concern. You have to ask yourself, okay, is our general plan actually meeting our needs, or are we finding ourselves that we're running into an impediment? Is the general plan fighting our vision, or is it helping our vision? And so we want to make sure that we're kind of looking at the life cycle and figuring out, do we need to do a more comprehensive update or not? Now, state law does require that the housing element and now the safety element is mandatory updated every 8 years. With state law, we also will need to be updating our transportation element and also adding environmental justice into our general plan shortly as well. The rest of them have no mandate. Usually good practice is 10 years, you kind of do a minor tweak, and then every kind of 20 years, you're looking at more comprehensive and more rigorous update. And so we are surprisingly getting close to our 10-year anniversary. We adopted our general plan in April of 2016, and we are now in almost April of 2025. And that makes me feel a little old, because I was there when we adopted the general plan. Now, one of the big things about the general plan, and this will cover another topic I will cover, is the housing element of the general plan. This is one that is really unique in that state law requires us to have a general plan with a housing element that is adopted pursuant to state law and compliant with it. It does have a key component where it follows the regional housing needs allocation. So the city has a delegated 2,866 units that we need to build over the period of 2021 and 2029. And so the housing element is written to address how are we going to be able to facilitate the development of this housing in the city and provide opportunities for that to be built. Doesn't mean that the city itself has to have that housing get built, but we need to make sure that we are not a constraint for the market to be able to fulfill that from happening. Now, what makes the housing element unique is it is the only element of the general plan that is reviewed and has to be certified by the state. Cities also have to annually report on its progress, and so on March 24th, next Monday, we will have the annual progress report of our housing element and general plan presented to City Council. So if you're interested, you can see how we're doing on that. One of the key things is if we don't comply with our policies or implement our housing element, the state can also decertify our housing element. So the state views our housing element as a contract between the city and the state of how we're going to implement the RENA numbers. And so if you violate the contract, then you're in breach of it. And so that is how the state kind of views it. You can be subject to fines, and you also lose local control. So one of the things that I will get into in a future study session is state law. There's a lot on housing, but there's a provision that's called the builder's remedy, where when a housing project normally has to conform to the general plan, if you don't have a certified housing element, then you don't have a compliant general plan, which means then any housing project therefore doesn't have to be compliant with your general plan, which means that anyone can propose and you would have to approve a project that does not meet your general plan or the densities of the district you would normally have it in. So that's one of the consequences that has certainly become a big issue in the past couple of years. Yeah, there's no height restrictions. The density is a lot higher than what we allow. So there's certainly some teeth to a lot of the state laws, which is a preview to our next study session. Now, we do have a few different great tools to help implement the general plan. Everyone here is familiar with the zoning code since you guys are now on the Plan Commission. You guys get to see it. It is our general standards that apply kind of throughout the city. It breaks down our key land use districts, what is allowed. It links back to our general plan for the land use element, focuses on the uses, setbacks, and just kind of general metrics of development. So what you guys typically see, most of the districts, most of the developments just within general districts of the city, and so most of it follows the zoning code. And then also follows the overall process for development. So the land use development procedures, what a conditional use permit is supposed to go through, the variance findings, all that stuff is listed in the zoning code of the Yucaipa Development Code as well. And so all that stuff is tied there as well. Now, there's another fun tool, which is a specific plan, which is kind of more of a focused area. So specific plan means specific area that goes into greater depth than just the general plan policies and the zoning code. So it's more of a hybrid between the two. Less of just commercial areas, CG says this setback allows this, you build this here, and it more focuses on this area, this corner here, we want to see this happen. And so it more leverages what you're trying to do and really focuses on how to accomplish that. And so an example is the Uptown Business District Specific Plan. The General Commercial District would not support how the Uptown built out. It was much more focused, much more deliberate on seeing that get built out. And so that's where the benefit is. And that also includes programs for implementation. It really focuses on what do we want it to look like and how are we actually going to make it happen? How can we encourage this outcome a little bit more broadly, a little bit more focused than what the general zoning code will allow. And then the last part is design guidelines. They provide the guidance on architectural design, landscaping, building massing, everything that gives you a sense of place. So what does the building supposed to look like, the details, the finishings, all that stuff. It includes both subjective and objective features. So, the roof slope is at a 3:1 or something like that. It will have S-tile for a Spanish feature. It will go into that kind of granularity. They are everywhere. You can find them in the zoning code and specific plans, and we also have a standalone document as well. It really is to help leverage our minimum expectations to say this is what we want to see, or help articulate the expectation. So if we say we want to see, craftsman style architecture, as part of this design for new housing development. Well, someone that just puts in a porch and says this is craftsman style architecture, if you don't have a standard that actually says you need to have this, you'll have your cross bracing, you'll have these features, you'll have, this tile, this wood feature, they could say, well, I've done it. I've met the thing. You don't have any standard that says, I didn't do craftsman architecture. And you'll go, no, I know you didn't meet it, but until you have an actual standard and design guidelines, it makes the rubric much more clear and much more actionable for everyone involved as well. And then kind of the further implementation is as we get individual projects, so the subdivisions to separate land, the site plan review such as conditional use permits, everything that gets the private development built, and everything links back up to the policies that you guys set forth. And then not every project requires commission review, but the policies go back to what you guys review and then recommend to the city council. And so planning projects themselves fall under two camps, advanced planning and current planning. The general plans, specific plans, those are all the advanced planning kind of activities that you guys get to be a part of. And then the current planning is all the individual projects that get things built under those codes. And so we get to work in kind of two different worlds. The dream is where do we as a city want to be when we grow up? And the real world, which is the individual projects of how do we actually make it happen, which is actually a lot of fun. And then as you guys are aware and get to see, we interact with a lot of people. You'll get the developers, land entitlement companies, architects, residents, realtors, advocates, neighbors, everyone will get to be involved in the process in some way or another. And so it is a lot of activity, and we're trying to blend all these different disparate and sometimes seemingly opposite goals together to find the right outcome. And then certainly the development review process starts with an idea, goes to review, and goes back and forth to ultimately getting to a final decision. And so there's a lot of different steps that we work on behind the scenes to get it to you guys ready to go. And so really the review process, we're certainly looking at the code consistency, site design constraints, doing environmental review, working on conditions of approval, looking at what has been approved before, what has been successful and what hasn't been. And sometimes one change can require future changes. So as we get a project, it isn't just, one size kind of fits all and it just goes through the process seamlessly. Sometimes it is a bit more of a kind of art form, and we try to work together with all the parties to really get it so it just bounces back and forth as needed, but we want to make sure that we get a good project at the end of the day. And so our goals really, as we bring projects to you, is we're making sure that it follows the policies, so the different tools that we have under the kind of Planning 101, is we're making sure every project does it. We're all here to implement the policy of the city council and maintaining that accountability for the fairness and trust of those different tools. And then our role is to make sure that we're making the best version of the project. Someone's property is their hopes for it. Not all projects are great. Some are, some aren't. But we do try to catch potential issues, try to find solutions, and ensure that it meets the community expectations with the tools that we do have. So we can't just randomly suggest ideas and say, hey, we're gonna ignore the general plan and the zoning code and just come up with this grand idea that's totally separate. We do have some degree of guardrails that we do need to stick within, and the same goes with the review of our projects. And so that is what we try to do, and we also try to catch things that you guys look for too. So as we get used to you guys on the Planning Commission, as we go through the different years, we try to pick up on things that you guys look out for a lot too, and we try to catch those on head on through the process. And then going back to our prior study session on the Planning 101, how do things get decided? Certainly the findings, written facts of approval, why the decision was made, and the conditions, measurable elements of a project, and the development that serves a legitimate public purpose. Things aren't decided on whim. They have to be based on actual reason per our code, and so we follow the direction policy per city council. And then really kind of to end on everything, we do have a lot of fun tools to help the public in kind of the planning process. So if you go on our city's website under our planning page, we do have a project tracker map. So any application that's going through the process is on our city's website that you can go in, you can look up, you can see the plans on it, you can see the status, when it was approved. This is an example. This is the Raising Cane's that is close to its grand opening. It was approved by a planning commission in early March of last year, so a year ago, or this meeting date a year ago was approved by a planning commission. Now it's about to open, but all those details are there. So we try to have a lot of great activities there. We have a lot of great information for residents on our city's website as well. So we try to make everything as accessible for residents. And so just want to kind of give a plug for those that are listening online, that we have a lot of great tools as well to help demystify the planning process. A lot of the Planning 101 from this topic is to help make everything a little bit more approachable, but everything that we have going on in the city, we have that information available for members of the public as well. And so just wanted to give that as a highlight for today's study session, and that's my presentation.
Thank you. What type of feedback are you guys getting from your new portal for the planning?
I think it's been pretty positive. By and large, a lot of the customers that know how to work within it, or at least know how to use a computer, have been very successful with it. Definitely we've seen some projects, so as an example, and I don't know if I've touched on this before, but normally when you have a project come through, you get the planchette, so it goes to building and safety, they take it in. It would have been like, as an example, they'll bring it in, they'll register it, they'll send it to our desk for review. We'll get it in, we'll review it, we'll put it back on their desk, they'll compile everything, they'll call the applicant will pick it back up, take the red lines, review it, come back, schedule another date to come in, wait in line, do all that stuff. And so something that would take a couple days to go through a correction of red lines, we had an example where we reviewed the plans and sent the red line corrections, they fixed it, got it reviewed again, and got approval within couple hours. I mean, it was within that same day, it was turned around and done. And so that was kind of the progress we were able to see. As an example, The Trader Joe's, when it went through the building review itself, like in terms of actual staff days involved, the building was, I think, less than 5 days in actual plan check with corrections. The TI for the inside, which is for Trader Joe's itself, was, I think, like 2 business days itself. So it was very quick. And so as long as the team has good information coming in and is responsive, it goes a lot quicker than it has been. Certainly, if you don't turn good stuff in, or if you have missing things, or don't check on the work that you have and missing quite a bit, then yeah, it takes a little bit more time. But that goes for any project. If you don't do your quality control, then you're gonna run into issues no matter what. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Maddie wants to.
I ironically had a customer today that I was helping from building and safety, and he was touching base about kind of the building permit side of things and was shocked to have better grasp face-to-face conversation that there is no formal like printed out building permit paperwork that's needed. That's all digital. So essentially any inspections that he requests and is needed for that project, that's all documented on this digital permit. So it's really saving manual labor there. Just cool feedback to hear from him that, you know, other places that he's doing business don't necessarily have this developed yet. So it's like, definitely let us know if those
Very
come to
exciting.
fruition and how we compare. But cool to see stuff.
That is very exciting.
And one of the fun things, just kind of for kind of transparency purposes, as before the meeting started, you guys kind of referenced the Trader Joe's as an example. You know, that was found out because of the transparency portal on our permit software. You were able to actually review that information on the city's website. So we couldn't necessarily disclose it like super publicly or advertise it, but the information's there. So if you're a member of the public and want to see what's going on, you can go to our permit software and you can type in the address and find any activity that's going on. You can pull up plans and we'll have this stuff posted as well. And so I did just want to leave just because I like Calvin Hobbs. A planning joke, this town ain't big enough for the both of us. Yep, I reckon we'll have to annex part of the county. Mom won't let us play with guns, so I'll get to the zoning board. And so there's just kind of a fun play on even back then, having fun with planning. And then the next data sessions I will have will be on key housing laws that I talked about. Definitely a lot of housing laws. There's, I think, 250 or plus housing laws in the past couple of years since 2016 that have been adopted by the state. So definitely a lot of activity there. And then the last one will be on the California Environmental Quality Act, since those can be quite fun to read.
Are you still able to have people come to the counter and submit applications for permits and projects and that in person without using the portal? Are you still able to accommodate them?
We will help them to do it through online, though, but it does have to ultimately be done through digital format.
Okay, so no matter what, they have to use the portal.
Yeah. But we can help them at City Hall with it. But we try to make sure we're completely paperless in terms of that. That way everything's documented through that system. And then we try to make sure to, let's say if like a developer is doing something, we try to make sure that all their contacts, including like the property owner and representative, is all included in those contacts. So any change that happens with the project is also, they get notified of that update so they know exactly where their project is at all times. So that way they don't run into an issue where they go, my contractor said it's been with the city for this long, and no, it's been with your person for this long. They can actually see in real time what's happening with their project, which has been very helpful.
I found that most people are relieved not to have to print the full size plan sets. I don't know if you guys have ever had to print anything that large, but when you're printing, 6 copies of a pretty large plan, it can run in the hundreds of dollars. So having it, you just have to update it and resubmit it online is a relief to a lot of people, especially I was talking to someone who is with a corporate office in Tennessee, and rather than having to hire someone to run the plans into the city, they're able to do everything on the computer. So there's definitely, some growing pains with some people who maybe aren't as good on the computer, but we get a lot of good responses from our development technician, Katie, who helps people kind of set up their account and get things uploaded. So
So you actually have like a phone consultation with them and that, and you can walk them through that?
Yep.
Awesome. A lot of municipalities are moving in that direction, so it's really great to see you guys be progressive this way.
State law requirement.
Yep.
Comment, may I?
Yeah.
Is it okay? Thanks, Ben, for your presentation. As you know, I was on the general plan, and we spent a lot of money and 3 or 4 years of time and meetings with the people in the city and a bunch of paperwork, and we realized it's not written on tablets of stone. However, I don't know, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but most of us don't want state mandating stuff to local authority, to local cities. We want to maintain that as best we can. And at the same time, we have a housing element. I remember talking to Ray Casey maybe 5 years ago now, and I said, according to the general plan, what do you think the population of Yucaipa might populate out? And, you know, he just came up with a ballpark figure, but it wasn't a lot more, you might say, than what we currently had because of the zoning. But the general plan did have a housing element, but we also have, you know, state legislature adopting rules. I guess SB 9 or something is what I'm hearing, but we have a councilman who was recalled who campaigned to stand up to Sacramento and keep Yucaipa rural. So now we have this mandate on affordable housing, and it's created quite a stir in our local community. And it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, that our city is basically, our hands are tied, because if we don't comply with the changes on the housing element for affordable housing, which you're going to make a report on the 24th, then you could be going down a slope of fines and consequences, as you mentioned. So I just don't know what we can do about all that. I just, you know, it frustrates me. So we'll be presented here on planning commissions with different things that go by certain rules. I just don't know. I'm going to look forward to this next one, I think, on the housing law and see if I can learn some more.
Yeah. No, certainly when we did the housing element update, I tried to stay within a lot of the programs and ideas that the general plan, the 2016 general plan, had already kind of proposed, and really just augmented those to keep it there. So we really didn't, I try not to divest ourselves too much from that, and through a lot of hard work and a lot of days off out of City Hall, but talking with HCD was able to get us with a strategy that didn't require a lot of rezoning to that. Things could have been a lot more significant for us. But it is, there are different metrics that we do still have to kind of keep doing. So really it's maintaining the course that we have already will keep us out of bigger issues later on, where if we don't comply or if we don't fulfill what we were already planning to do, then that's where we run into issues where, okay, now we have to start rezoning other things on top of what we have. And so that really was the thing that I tried to keep us out of the first time. And so far we've been able to stay pretty well out of it. We've been tracking pretty good, but it is one of those kind of reminders that every decision has a consequence. And so if we start straying too far, then that could be the repercussion. But I tried to keep us in the housing element. The philosophy was, let's try not to go so crazy where we're having to rezone a whole bunch of stuff to meet this, the state requirements. It was really more, we have these different programs and policies in place from the 2016 general plan. Let's find a way to make it come to fruition and kill two birds with one stone.
I think this is a good opportunity for me to add that all of our meetings are live streamed on YouTube and are public record. So always be mindful of what is said in these meetings, as if a reviewing body like HCD were to watch them back, that there's nothing that we wouldn't be proud of.
Okay, are there any other announcements?
Nothing comes to mind. As I mentioned, we do have a few kind of spattering projects coming forward, but a lot of the projects we do have trying to meet, the heavier bulk of the projects are all kind of in the environmental review phase right now, so they're all kind of at that stage. So we probably won't see kind of heavier agendas until kind of mid or later summer, and so I'll keep you guys kind of apprised of that. And then probably as we see some other stuff move forward in the future, some other projects that may come to fruition, we'll probably see some heavier action coming through into the later half of the year as well. So luckily it's a little bit of a lighter spring, so. All right.
Okay, well, with that, at 7:45, meeting's adjourned.